choose to remain professionally active or withdraw from the workplace altogether. They can also choose leisure or recreation, or they can choose to give back through community involvement or advocacy. There are more choices than ever for women in the 21st century. Are you wondering how to make choices that are best for you? Choices that are aligned with your vision, your passion, and your core values? Choices that contribute to sustainable resilience and fulfillment. My guest today has shined shoes, waited tables, cleaned houses, all while building her successful business. Undeniably, Cindy knows firsthand what resilience is and how to make it work for her in finding fulfillment and giving back. Cindy and I agree that resilience is key to fulfillment and joy, especially after 60. I have invited Cindy to share her insight on the power of aligning vision, passion, and your core values for resilience. Welcome, Cindy.
Oh, Patricia, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited this morning when I woke up. I was like, I get to go with Patricia today.
Oh, well, you know what? That's a very important part of finding fulfillment after 60 is having something to look forward to.
100%.
Something to get us up in the morning. Yes.
Yep.
So I would love for you to share with our audience about having a long-term vision at any age and passion for what you do.
I started my business back in 2004, and it's something I don't know if it's something I learned when I was younger, but I always had a vision for the future, and retirement was never part of it. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to be in a position to always have the choice. So for me, it was around choice, not that I have to work, that I get out of bed every day and I do what I do. I love coaching people. I love my charity. I have so many things in my life that allow me to live my core values. But I've always had, and I joke and I say, I'm going to work until they put me in the pine box, because I know I'm making a difference in the world. And I think that's what happens to people is I've got girlfriends that retired and now they're starting their own business. Now they're becoming consultants. Now they're working, at a clothing store or something, because it's exactly what you just said, Patricia. We have to have, as humans, I believe, and this is my own personal belief, having something to look forward to. And I know through COVID, I think that was probably a big challenge for a lot of people, not, vacations to look forward to, family time to look forward to, all of the little things that we look forward to every day. And I think that's why now everybody's traveling everywhere, doing everything. So for me personally, I've always had a long-term, I do my annual, I know where I want to be, I set all my metrics, I set my goals, but I also know I want to, and I have nobody to report to anybody because it's my own business, but it keeps me motivated. If you don't have, it's like the whole thing, if you set a long-term goal, but you're not measuring how you're going, you're not going to have the same motivation or the same even resilience, because if you're not tracking it, I met lots of people that I've coached and they say, I started writing a book or I started this, and I don't know, it just sort of fell by the wayside. Mm-hmm. And we've gone in and found out that it was just they lost their metrics. They lost the checking in or bragging. I always call it bragging rights, right? When one of my clients do something great, I just go bragging rights, yell it from the rooftop, just make it fun. And I don't, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it works for me and has always worked for me and it works for my clients. And I always joke and say, if it ain't fun, I don't want to do it. And I think you can make a lot of things fun. And so to me, if you look at corporations, you look at any successful business, they have long-term goals. They have 3, 5, 10-year plans. And I think we need to do that for our own personal life as well.
That was the question I was going to ask you, because many of us who are entrepreneurs, we are very familiar, or even working in corporations, about making business goals. But those personal goals need to align with our vision, passion, and our core value as well. So I'd like to ask you about how has the alignment of your vision, your passion, and your one core value that you have, I know you have one very important one, how has that contributed to you giving back?
So my core value is service. And it was funny because it wasn't until a few years ago that I recognized why I still get so pumped. And that's because my full-time business, Athena, is service. It's service for my partners, for my clients. Coaching is totally service. You're there to support a person become the very best that they can be. And then I started a charity we called Courage in Action, supporting women to move forward in their life. That is total service. It's completely run by volunteers. In fact, I was counting up we actually 35 volunteers regularly work in Courage in Action to keep it going. And it's amazing. And we completely pivoted when COVID hit, because we had actually 4 conferences booked and all of them got canceled. And we now offer online. We have bursaries, and I coach all of our bursary winners as well. So they go back to school and I will coach them while they're in class. And our very first bursary winner, really, really quickly, very recently sent me a note thanking Courage in Action for the support, because we gave her $2,500 for her first tuition. She was going to be a social worker, and she was just letting me know that she was moving out of her mother's place. She now had a wonderful boyfriend, and she was going back to get her master's, and she bought her first car. And she said none of that would have been possible. None of it would have been possible if we hadn't given her the first hand up. So that's what we give. It's not a handout, it's a hand up. So we have all kinds of programs. We have a mentor program. It lights me up. In fact, I do more for that for free than I did even for my own business in some ways. So I think if whoever you are, you can identify what that core value is. It's almost like your juice. Maybe that's not a good word to use, but for me, that's what juices me and I realize when I walk away and I feel completely satisfied, when I feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do, it always goes back to service. Mm-hmm. And so I'm super proud of the charity that we created, and we're even more excited because we're going to have our first in-person conference in the spring, and just continually going and helping women. So if I can be of service in any way, shape, or form, I also do volunteer coaching for other agencies. I do volunteer training for Scarborough Women's Center. I'm a coach for Up With Women. So it's at the core of who I am, and especially helping women.
Very much so. So my takeaway from what you have just talked about is that vision, the passion drives your core value, and your core value is like the foundation for everything that you do, whether it's revenue producing, whether it's in your life fulfillment, or whether it's in serving other women, right? And giving them a voice. So at this point, I'd like to ask the audience just to think for a moment as we continue, what are your big takeaways from what Cindy is sharing? Because I could see where that piece, that's the anchor, the foundation, when the pandemic came along, even though everything was thrown off the rails as far as face-to-face conferences, because you have very strong vision, passion, and your value, you were able to clarify how you are going to change that so you could continue to do that. So that is a big part of resilience, is being able to go ahead regardless of what is thrown at us sometimes, right? So
and I always think of it as, some people say bounce back, and I always like to think of it as bounce forward. Because a lot of the times when we're faced with difficulties and, adverse situations, when we look back, a lot of times we've learned something. We've actually grown in a way that maybe we wouldn't have grown before. And I know with COVID, I think the biggest thing for me was I was used to living and working alone, but I always had a big social life in sort of the after hours. And what it did was it gave me some reflection time. And I think that that's something now that I do more regularly that I didn't do before, was actually, going through the metrics and all that is one thing, but, at the end of the day, just going, okay, what went well today? What was, did you do, how was that conversation? Did you make a difference with the lady at the grocery store, or just putting that little bit of an edge? And we do great things every day, we don't even notice it.
especially in service, like you say, it's the little things. It's not the big things. Like, you have done some big things that are to be acknowledged and congratulated, but there's those little things that you make a difference in people's lives every day. And I love the fact that you say bounce forward, because that bounce back, and actually that was a lot of the rhetoric during the pandemic again, about getting back to normal. Well, I used to cringe, and I'm cringing now when I hear people saying back to normal. Like, what was so great about back normal then, that we stops us from creating something forward based on what we're learning in this experience? So we're coming up with more insights than you and I had planned, but this is what it's all about. So,
being in the moment.
being in the moment, for sure, and being excited about being in the moment.
Yes.
Share how your core value, and you've said a little bit about it, but the core value of service, on the other side, how does it keep you young at heart?
Well, I think we're all energy, right? I turned 70 this year, and I do not, people say it all the time, you've got the energy of a 40-year-old. And I'm like, I feel like a 16-year-old sometimes. My knees will tell me sometimes on the stairs, yeah, you're 70 now. But for the most part, 99, I think it's all energy. So, the phrase health is wealth.
Yes.
So taking good care, because the choices that you made when you're 30, 40, and 50 will affect your health when you're 70, 80, and 90. And so I think it's all boils down to choices. And I think as we get older, and maybe I was always a little bold, but I speak my mind more now. I'm very comfortable saying no to things that I just don't want to do anymore. So I think there's sort of a freedom that comes with that. And I think that we just learn that the world is not going to stop because you didn't go to that dinner party, or, I think that puts the self-importance in the right place, right? Because sometimes at least I did. I had a lot of drama when I was very young, and always had this going on and that going on. Like, literally right now, I have very little drama, and I love it. I just have a very stable, healthy, and one thing, Patricia, and you know this too, is having strong friendships and connections. And, there's studies that show, not only is like sleep super important, your diet is super important, drinking lots of water. They've done studies to find people who have really strong connections with others actually have less dementia, live longer. But I don't want to live to be 100 if I'm not well. I think it's quality of life rather than quantity. I think it's more important to live a good life and be healthy as long as you're alive versus living, in an unhealthy kind of way. So I take my health very seriously. I exercise regularly, and my mental health. I meditate. I think that's equally as important. And for dementia, they tell you should be learning new things. So my boyfriend and I are taking Latin dancing.
Good for you. Actually, the tango has been recognized as being very helpful for women in particular, for mental wellness, because we've heard this before. Like, we dance backwards and in heels, right?
Yes.
But the tango has certain steps that make our brain operate in a different way. So it's like music as well. Women who take up music or another language in their 60s, they're helping their brain because it's rewiring and it's strengthening certain parts. So that was another little side note that we came up with. I want to go back to another one. When you talked about relationships and also quality of life, I think quality of friendships is important too. It's not about how many friends you have. It's not about collecting friends. It's about having strong bonds. I have one strong bond with a friend that has gone all over the world during the pandemic. She's ended up in the Netherlands. And even though we don't communicate weekly or even monthly sometimes, we created such a strong bond that she actually complimented me on having the connection with her during a difficult part of her life over the last couple of years, just how much that meant to her, knowing that somebody knew how she thought, because
Yeah.
we were able to develop that kind of relationship. Not that we read one another's minds, but it was all about like how we thought and how we feel.
Nice.
So I'm going to move on because I want to ask you, what other areas of life provide you with fulfillment at this time?
My grandchildren, love my grandchildren, love spending time with them. Although they're getting older now, I love spending time with my friends, my boyfriend. I love being in nature. I love traveling. We went to Portugal this summer. Would love to continue every year and have a nice vacation. But again, that goes back to having something to look forward to.
Right.
Is to know. And like you, my sister is my best friend, and we're like two peas in a pod. Like even as children, we never fought. We just we think, I know she's got my back no matter what. Even if I mess up, she loves me anyway. And I think that gives you a confidence that that not everybody has, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is a great segue into part of my show, and that's the Executive Encore. This segment is called Every Moment Matters, and you've just described a few takeaways in Every Moment Matters. But Cindy, can you share one pivotal moment when you recognized what fulfillment looks like for you? And at the same time, please follow up by letting our audience know how to reach you.
Okay. So the pivotal moment would have been way back in 2008 when I was in a financial situation with my business. It wasn't doing great. It was the recession. And I remember thinking at the time, having the choice to shoe shine, all of the things that I did that year to keep my mortgage, pay my mortgage, do all that. And what it showed me in the end is that, they always, you hear motivational speakers say, if you really want something, you'll go the extra mile, you'll do whatever you have to do. And it actually showed me firsthand how much I loved my business. And that mindset changed. And I'm almost 19 years in business. In January, will be 19 years running my business. And I'm still just as excited today as I was when I first started. But I think the pivotal moment for me was in 2008 because I was offered another job as a salesperson. I could have gone off and just completely got out of it. And how many small businesses fail? But no, I really wanted it. And that showed me in that moment. And so the big pivot for me was a mindset that I could do it. And it was my choice.
Now, you had a blog just the last couple of weeks on that very topic about, what was the title of it? Excuse me for looking over at the screen. Go the extra mile. It's never crowded. And although you wrote this in the context of business, you and I spoke about how important that is in our personal lives as well. Go the extra mile because it's not crowded there. It's all about what's best for you, right? So, excuse me. I'd like to thank my growing audience today. It is growing. I'm so pleased with that. I'm going to go the extra mile on this as well. Join me each week and invite your friends as I interview women like Cindy and other thought leaders about finding fulfillment and joy after 60. If you are interested in having your voice heard, you'd like to be a guest, please contact me. You can visit me on my website at patriciamuir.com. So Patricia Muir is down in the corner there. You can see my name and just put the .com on it, take out the spaces. Please read my Executive Encore weekly blog at patriciamuir.com/blog and subscribe to my weekly newsletter. Sunday mornings are special for self-care in my community, and hundreds of women sit with their favorite beverage to read my latest insights on fulfillment in work and life. And please add your review and your comments on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. You will see Cindy and I show up there sometime today. This is how we will get our voice out to other women. So have a great day, and we will see you next week.